Good.
How's everybody doing? Everybody have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. Everybody have a quiet, boring Thanksgiving?
Ours was good.
We had we found a turkey breast in a bag. Kind of take it out of the bag, put it in the oven, or cook it in the, take it out of the plastic bag, put it in the oven, and it was more than the two of us could eat.
Yeah,
I was lucky. A nice neighbor knocked on my door. I would have been alone, and so would he. And he said, "You want to go to the pantry?" And we did. And we could eat there. We had a great Thanksgiving dinner and visited.
Oh, that's great. The pantry is a nice place up there.
Yes, it is.
There were a lot of people. We had a Zoom meeting with all the kids and grandkids in the Denver area, and so we got a chance to talk with all of them and all that kind of stuff. So, and see the kids, and which we hadn't seen much of this summer. So it's always good.
You were in Missouri, weren't you, when that happened?
We went to Virginia here recently, so in the motorhome.
Oh, I have a daughter in Midlothian, Virginia.
Oh, my sister lives I grew up there. I went to high school there. My sister lives in Mechanicsville.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
The Melodians over in the southeast side of town, southwest side of
my
town.
daughter lives in Mechanicsville.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and my son in Williamsburg.
Oh, wow. Well,
Wow.
I grew up in Richmond, went to Enrico, and
Yeah.
started out college at the University of Richmond, and then ended up when I went in the Air Force, ended up being stationed back at Langley, just down in Hampton Road. So
Oh, my.
now my mom lives up in Roanoke, Salem area.
Oh, yeah. I had an uncle in Roanoke
Oh, wow.
long ago. But I'm really from Kansas. I just,
Okay. Did I tell you Kansas is boring?
it's not. It's wonderful.
Driving across it on the interstate, oh my God. They ought to work on one of those hyper tubes that can just zoom you across Kansas in about 20 minutes, and that'd be good with me.
Oh, then you miss all the wheat fields and the cattle and the clouds coming out of the ground, what it looks like, you know.
Yeah, I would. I would truly miss all of that.
Hey, How do you figure out where you're going to go bird hunt?
Jim, a self-driving car would only have a right turn and a left turn to make in that entire trip.
Yes.
Across Kansas.
A right turn on the interstate and another turn off of it.
Well, we're jog southeast a little bit, and then it goes straight east again.
Yep, that's it.
When I was a little girl, the speed limit was 80 miles an hour. And my dad drove from the Wichita area to Colorado Springs in 6.5 hours.
They still drive 80 miles an hour.
Not so good nowadays.
I was driving in a 40-mile-an-hour crosswind with gusts to 60 miles an hour in a high-profile vehicle, so it was not
No
what I
fun.
would call a nice, enjoyable drive.
Try that in Wyoming.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Rick, are you on? You and Jess?
Yes, I am.
Do we have a quorum?
Yes, we have a quorum, but Jess, if you'll please read off the attendance, because we may have too many, and I may have to pick some alternates who can't vote.
Okay, I'll go off the attendance. So first I'm going to say who I don't see, because there's much less of those than the full house here. So I don't see Miss Cindy Tompkins. Are you on the line, Cindy? Ann Nichols.
Yeah, I'm on the phone.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Jean Bray, are you here?
Yes, I am. I'm on.
Perfect. There you are. And then David Chestnut. Do we have him today? Okay. And Rick Hoover, have you joined?
I'm here.
All right. So it looks like the only people I show missing today is David Chestnut and Cindy Tompkins.
So Ed can vote, Carlos can vote, Jim Moore cannot, and Jim Godfrey cannot.
Okey doke.
Did you want me to still go through, or are we good with everybody is here?
I think we're good.
Okay.
I think we're
So if
good.
you guys will just remember to mute yourselves if you're not speaking, or turn off your phone, that'll help our lagging. And then when making a motion, if you'll just state your name for us, that way we capture it in the recording and clearly on our notes. And other than that, I turn it back to you.
Well, let me just start off by thanking you, Jess, for all your support. You do a great job. We couldn't do this without you guys in the background making this happen, so thank you. So I'd like to call the meeting to order, 1:03 by my computer. And we've established a quorum and who can vote. Any questions on any of that? Okay, hearing none, do I hear a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved. Richard.
Richard motion, who seconds?
Second,
Second.
Jean Bray.
Great, okay, Gene, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, agenda is approved as presented. Are there any public comments for items not on the agenda by the committee members?
None were received by email.
Okay. Are there any non-committee members on the meeting that have any public comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item number 4. Do I hear a motion for approval of the minutes from the November 4th meeting, please?
This is Brian West. I move unanimous consent.
Thank you.
Second, Ed Dills.
Ed Dill, second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays, any non-approval? Okay, motion approval carries. Thank you. Financial reports, Bev.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All righty. So September sales and use tax. So go down one more page, Jessica. There you go. Okay, stop. Was 11,189,000, and we were 2,443,000 over budget, or 27.9%. But the real story is on the second page, so go up one more page. We were ahead of last September by $1.6 million, or 16.7%. Now, quite a bit of this is money from prior periods due to the change in the laws regarding web-based sales. So we're still seeing a lot of old receipts. And so it's not really telling us a clear picture of what's happening with the current sales and use tax.
One thing to note, Bev, I think that the trend certainly looks good, and some recent articles in the paper, car sales and registrations are up, and it appears as though based on the story today, home sales are highest they've been in 15 years. So it looks like some good revenue trends through the end of the year, hopefully.
Well, hopefully. It's just that next year, I'm not thinking that we're going to see this incredible difference between the prior year, 2020 and 2021. And I'm just trying to prepare everyone for that.
Yeah, good point. Well, we've got some nice reserves of funds over budget, so that's a nice thing to do.
Right, and that'll pop into next year's budget, so.
Right.
And we were conservative when budgeting for next year, so. So that's good too, and we always are. So are there any questions on the financial reports?
Any questions for Bev? Great, thank you very much, Bev.
Okay, thank you.
Capital maintenance and construction projects. So it looks like Colorado Springs is the submitter. Who's on for that?
This is Mike. I'm here. How's everyone doing?
Doing good, Mike. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. We have 5 items today. First item is the engineering on-call contracts. We actually went to RFP this year to not a renewal, but to start a new round of 5-year cycle. So there is a list attached of the task or the contracts we'll approve. These will be $200,000 limit task orders with a $3 million limit yearly. What we've been doing past few years, where we just have vendors that have contracts that we can use for mainly for smaller projects, and we can just get them going and not have to come to the board for approval of them. Is there any questions on that item?
Where's the list? Is this just for engineers, and where's the list? Backup.
It's in the packet.
It's attached. It's attached after the memo.
Yeah, there it is. Uh-oh.
Okay. I take it it's page like what?
18 of 131.
Yeah, I found it, Jim. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. The next item, is there any other questions?
I have a question. This is Ann in Green Mountain Falls. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting. I had not known of this. I still learn something every day, but that's such a great thing. I wonder if there's ever any possibility, maybe Rick is answering too, that something like that could be extended to other members through the PPRTA even. We always have engineering questions in Green Mountain Falls, and it's pretty expensive. I don't know how that works, but that's nice to have that in the budget for Colorado Springs.
Are you talking about trying to piggyback on a contract, Ann? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I was just wondering about that. Is that ever possible? I don't know.
Mr. Chair, this is Jennifer from El Paso County.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Mr. Chair, our contracts with El Paso County have those the ability to piggyback, and Green Mountain Falls has used our on-call contracts in the past.
Okay.
Yep.
I wondered about that because Jennifer, I knew we've done things, has helped us out, but I didn't understand how it worked. Okay.
Any other questions for Mike on this item?
Yes, Mike. Can you tell me, Shannon Wilson, is that the same as the original Wilson, the engineering firm?
I'm not. It's a different. You mean Wilson and Company?
Yeah, Wilson and Company, a former county engineer, now working for.
I'm not sure. I have no idea about that.
Well, I
they're from out of Denver.
Yes, as a former employee of Wilson and Company, Andre Bracken works for that company. Yes.
Because they've changed. They've been engulfed by a larger firm. That's fine.
Yeah, he's doing some work in Green Mountain Falls on our stilling basins.
They're separate firms. Shannon Wilson's a geotech firm primarily, and Wilson and Company's a different overall engineering company.
Okay, they haven't changed hands.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is contract renewal for no NV5.
Hey,
for,
wait a minute, Mike. Mike,
huh?
hold on. Gene Bray had a question.
Okay.
Based on what Ann said and Jennifer commented on, how difficult would it be to tailor these contracts to allow member organizations to make use of them if they bring funds to the table?
Mike Zeller has said that each of these contracts contain a piggyback clause.
Okay. That answers it. Thank you.
All right. All right.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Next, excuse me. The next item is it's a task order renewal for NV5 for continuing of the RTA program management that they help us with. This was completed in 2018, and so we're renewing the second option this year. We're got a dollar price of 1.9 million. That also includes enough funding for another project manager. Not that we're going to bring somebody on board, but we just wanted to have the ability because of the heavy workload we're anticipating in 2021 with so many big projects going to construction.
Okay.
Questions on that one? I should do in-person meetings.
Right, sure.
Yeah. Next item is a small contract for all traffic data services. They're going to be conducting traffic counts on Platt Avenue. And we got them going sooner because we have the bridge project that we want them to do counts before the bridge construction impacts the traffic patterns on Platt. And so this is first part of the Platt Avenue.
Hey, Mike, I got a question. Don't you think we could do this cheaper by just taking some of the people that are laid off from work and put a notebook in their hand and have them sit by the road? Just teasing, just teasing.
Quick question, Jim. Gene Bray. Question, Jim. Gene Bray.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mike, is the counts that you're trying to get before work impacts things on the Sand Creek Bridge area?
I think his answer was yes, that was why they're trying to get this done, so they know the counts before they impact traffic.
Well, traffic is already being impacted out there. The eastbound is already down to one lane.
And we just added it to the bridge contract just since they're going to be in the area working. And so the bridge project is actually paid with general funds, but the bike improvements are being covered by the on-street bike program.
Well, my question had to do with getting counts on the east end of Platt prior to construction projects impacting traffic flows, but eastbound Platt is already restricted to one bound lane over Sand Creek.
Yeah, I have to check with the project manager. I'm not sure if they're going to be. They may open that up, but basically before they get into some really long prolonged closures and lane restrictions, we wanted to try to get some counts done.
That answer your question, Gene?
Well, sort of, but the implications on the signage is that it's down to one lane and it'll stay that way.
Let me check on that. We might have actually had those counts done already. I'll find out and have an answer for the board next week.
All right, thank you.
Mike, can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
This is Red. Platt Avenue, this is what do I want to say, corridor study. And I think the map, and I stand to be corrected, but I think the map goes all the way from Powers all the way to downtown, where it splits at about Bijou. All I'm saying is, I can understand the traffic counts for that. I'm not sure, I can see the correlation too. Figure out where the traffic's going after you're making these improvements through the bridges and going west. I can see why those counts should be counted now and then during the impact, how that impact, but does this base on the corridor study or the bridges?
Based on, it's a corridor study.
I'm sorry?
So basically, we're just trying to see, right, Platte Avenue is one of the main east-west travel ways, and so there's a lot of issues. Further east, it's probably more just a capacity, and I'm just guessing, but they'd probably come up with a recommendation for some widening east of Academy or and that, from there east. Going into downtown gets a little trickier because there isn't really a lot of option to widen Platte. So these counts will help determine where traffic is going and coming from, and then that'll be used to develop some solutions and some alternatives on how to handle all that traffic, including connection to the I-25.
You okay, Red?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mike.
All right. All right. Was there any questions on the bike improvements? No. Okay. Then the last item we have is basically a correction. A couple months ago, we brought a change order for Kiewit to the board, and we reduced the Kiewit's contract of RTA funds by about $450,000. And we added some URA bond money. Well, there was a miscalculation on how much URA money was actually available. So this is just a correction to add back in $51,000 of the RTA funds.
Everything going okay with that west side abutment?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
For the record, can we define URA?
It's the urban renewal bonds that are available for the Southwest improvements.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Brian. Any other questions? Any other questions for Mike on their requested projects? We do have one person that needs to abstain from the vote. For the record, Scott needs to abstain. Is that correct, Scott?
Yes, that's correct.
Jim, it's Karen. I need to abstain too
Okay.
from number 1.
Okay. I'd rather not separate them, so I think we have enough people rather than separating it out. We'll just note for the record that you guys did not vote because of your affiliation with some of the contractors on that list. Any other questions for Mike on the city's contract request? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Move as presented, Ed Dills.
Thank you, Ed.
Second. This is Cheryl, second.
Second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thank you.
Item number 7, other reports, transit. Who's here from transit?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Brian Vituli with the City of Colorado Springs Mountain Metropolitan Transit with your monthly transit report.
Hey, Brian.
Hi, everyone. For our fixed route ridership for the month of October, we provided a little over 168,000 trips for the month. That's down about 39% from October of 2019. And we scroll down for the ADA paratransit service. We provided a little over 6,800 trips in October, and that's a decrease of a little over 47%. We're still not doing our taxi choice option, so there's nothing to change with that. Our van pool services, we operated 7 vans in October with 34 active riders doing about 660 trips. That's still a decrease of 82%.
Hey, Brian, can I ask real quick how you guys are able to arrange that logistically with the restrictions?
Our van pool services?
Yeah.
Well, it's still, our van pool coordinator is continuing to coordinate with those van pools, and as long as there are still, individuals that are meeting that criteria, they have the same schedule, they're going to the same place, and they're still able to maintain that van, then they're still continuing. The trouble with that, and why we've seen such a decrease with van pools of over 80% is, just the teleworking has pretty much taken over our our lives. There's so many people working from home, and just the need to commute is not there anymore. So the demand for our van pool services is not that great now, but it is, it has picked up over the last couple months. I think probably the next couple months, November and December, will be interesting to see with the increases in cases, and I'm not sure what impact that will have for our van pools, but we've been kind of holding steady over the last couple months, and it has increased from earlier this summer.
Can I also ask about your ridership and your procedures on just the standard bus services? How is that going? How are you able to deal with the current situation? Because as you noted, there's been some significant decreases in your ridership, which is completely understandable. I'm just trying to compare to like things the airlines are doing with regard to at least trying to meet and mitigate.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So we are, all of our operators are wearing masks. All of our vehicles have, plexiglass shields separating where the operator sits from the fare box. So we're, limiting some contact there. Early on in this, we did suspend fare collection, and we were requiring passengers to board from the rear doors. And what we saw with that was overwhelming demand on some buses, primarily along South Academy Avenue. There are a lot of homeless outreach centers and homeless facilities in that area. And so the routes that operated in those areas were just being overwhelmed because ridership was not being, because fare collection was suspended. So that was the opposite effect that we wanted to see. So we started collecting a fare again, and we've been proceeding in that direction. We're trying to gauge capacity, and we have the operators call into dispatch when their bus is above a certain number, so we can track the routes that's happening on. In some cases, on our higher ridership routes where overcrowding was happening, we would put out filler buses. so we could keep capacity kind of maintained a little bit. You know, we did have an outbreak over the last several weeks or the last month. You know, our fixed route operator, they are one of our contractors. You know, we have three main contracts for our fixed route operation, our ADA paratransit operation, and our vehicle maintenance. So they're all employees of those private contractors that we hire. And so there were many operators who were either quarantined because they may have been in contact with somebody who was who had the virus, or they themselves were positive. We're slowly getting back into a good situation. I think there were a couple of weeks ago, there were about 13 operators that were out of commission. I think all but 2 of them are back to work. So we're able to maintain still kind of a reduced weekday service. You know, we have some limited frequency that we're running on some of our bigger routes. Some routes are still discontinued, but we're able to carry on now. And you know, the vehicles do a deep cleaning every night when they come in. And you know, in between trips, when the operators are laying over at one of the transfer centers, you know, they're cleaning up some of the high touch points, you know, the seats and the overhead grab bars that passengers can hang on to in the fare box. So we feel we've been doing what we need to do, working with the El Paso County Health Department very closely. So we're still carrying on. And you know, ridership has been down, of course, but it hasn't. You know, it's been steady at about, you know, 60% of what we normally operate. And so we haven't really deviated a whole lot from that. You know, it has been down, but we are still providing an essential service, and there still are a lot of people who need that essential service.
Absolutely. And I wanted to take a second to pass along to you, in my capacity as vice chair for the El Paso County Homeless Veterans Coalition. Obviously, we deal with a lot of our marginalized folks who live along the margins. And I wanted to pass along the thanks of some of the folks we deal with, but also the thanks of the coalition itself for the really outstanding work that you guys have done in trying to maintain and keep the services going during an extremely challenging time. I don't think anybody really appreciates public transportation until they absolutely have to have it. And you guys really, if you would pass along to your staff and your folks over there how much the folks who live at the margins of this community really appreciate what you all are doing.
Oh, thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. And yeah, I'll surely share that with everybody at our office. Thank you.
Do you, in the transit community locally and across the nation, anticipate that this will permanently alter your ridership with more people opting for a home, or their employers opting for them to work from home?
That's a really good question. You know, I think as we start to emerge from this, I mean, my opinion is we'll start to see our ridership levels creep up, and I do believe that we'll probably get back to where we were, or very close to that. You know, what we've been trying to do over the years is to improve our service, make it more attractive to new riders, those choice riders who do have other ways to get to work or medical appointments or school. But you know, the fact of the matter is our system is still primarily a system that is used by those without very many other transportation options. So I think,
Bingo.
those are the people that are still, out there on the front lines and are required to be at their workplace every day. So I think we will see a pretty good, kickback in our ridership as we start to emerge from this.
Brian, yeah, this is Brian West. I agree with that. You might see, like you've seen with the van pool services, because that's more of a choice program. But I think your regular transit buses, I mean, maids still have to get to their hotels, and workers who actually have to manufacture things and put things together can't do that remotely. So, I think that's kind of like I was saying, the folks that I see a lot, and the marginalized folks in our community who live at, the more of the I don't have another option.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good discussion, and time will tell. And if we all had a crystal ball, we'd know that answer now. But I think that's the way we're heading. We'll see. And finally, just the project update. Since this report went out to be included in the packet just earlier this week, we've had some movement with the North Nevada Transit Connectivity Study. We are looking to wrap this project up. I think invitations were just sent out this morning to have our third and final set of stakeholder meetings. So that's the Technical Advisory Committee and the Community or the Citizens Advisory Committee meetings will be on Monday, December 14th. And then we're looking on Wednesday, December 16th from 5:30 to 7 to have a virtual public meeting. So it's, it will be our chance to kind of bring everybody up to speed again on where we are with the project, the work we've done, bringing forward the locally preferred alternatives, introducing some potential service plans and operating and capital costs. And then, the next steps in moving forward with this, once this project is done, the city of Colorado Springs is still in the middle of their Connect COS effort. So that's the intermodal citywide mobility plan that's going on. So the thought is to bring the recommendations from this North Nevada Transit Connectivity Study into that process, and then kind of look at a large scale, what through simulations and just looking at what the recommendations of this study would mean to the rest of the transportation system. So, if we are proposing to put a bus rapid transit line on a certain corridor, what impacts would that have on the rest of the transportation system? So it's kind of a interesting holistic way of looking at impacts citywide. And so it's an exciting way to think of it. And, I think this project could be successful or more successful if brought into, the Connect COS effort. So even though we'll be ending this project, which will be of great relief to me, it will still be part of the Connect COS effort, and we'll see the results of that, through the coming year, all the way through 2021. And it puts us in a really good position to, excuse me, I've talked an awful lot. So this puts us in a really good position as we start to up other projects to put on the PPRTA 3 list. So it's good timing, actually. So are there any other questions?
Thank you, Brian, for the update. Good discussion. Thanks, everybody, for your questions.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So let's move on to item 7B, City of Colorado Springs request to revise board policy number 12. Mike, you gonna do this one?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. So last month, we brought the Platte Avenue Bridge Replacement Project for approval using RTA funds and some federal funds for that combined project. One of the things that I neglected to do was ask that this project be put on the list for the policy 12 exemption, or the exemption, which is a higher change order limits that we usually do for these larger projects. So that policy allows us to do change orders up to $100,000 each, up to 10% of the project contract without coming to the board. We put those on the log, and then if we have anything larger, we will bring to the board. But basically, we found that on these larger projects, we have change orders that kind of come up. And in order to keep things going, we came up with this policy exemption. So basically a higher change order limit that allows us to keep going, working, but still is trackable and transparent to the board as far as the money that we are using and expending.
Jim, this is Brian West.
Go ahead, Brian.
I would move that we authorize this as an exception to board policy, provided that proper recording and reporting is made.
This Rivers. I second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion?
This is Rick. I'd just like to add, this is the 14th of these projects that the CAC and board have approved since 2006. This will be number 14.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, go ahead.
Just for matter of discussion with, to expand on Rick's comment. Yeah, this is number 14, but I still think it's important for us to do this as as exceptions to the rule rather than standard practice.
Yes, that's the rationale and the procedure we've been using so far. Okay, all those in favor? We have a motion.
Sorry, just one more question.
Okay.
We don't have to do anything about the eastbound. It's started, that's going to come later. This is just westbound.
Well, Cardinals is basically any RTA funds. This policy pertains to the use of RTA funds. So now, if we do have a change order that we use the federal funds, we'll bring that as a informational item to the CAC and the board.
I was just wondering, I think we have an eastbound component to this as well, but that would be a separate item, correct?
Well, the both bridges are getting replaced with one. So the RTA is funding the westbound, and the federal funds are basically paying for the eastbound bridge.
My concern is that this is a little too narrow. But if that's the case, I tell you what, we'll just cross that bridge, no pun intended. If it comes up that this is too restrictive, we could open it up, and if we need to encompass the eastbound. That was my question. But it sounds like we have our bases covered here, and we'll just continue with the motion on the floor, which is to approve this item, and I'm in support of it.
Okay. So all those in favor of approving the change to policy number 12, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the motion carries for approval of that request. Next item, 7C, is informational item. It's the monthly change order change order log. Any questions or comments on the city's change order log?
No.
All right. Does somebody say something? No. Okay. Item 7D, quarterly reports from member governments. This is an informational item. Just a reminder, this is good stuff in terms of being able to answer questions for the constituents. There's a lot of work that goes into maintaining this, so it's a great reference document to have handy should anybody ask questions. Any comments or questions on 7D, quarterly reports from member governments?
Yes, I have one, or actually
Go
two.
ahead.
Page 81, the project description. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Rev. Go ahead.
Okay, project description is not an A-list project. The already Academy Boulevard, Airport to Fountain is not included. When I say that, the project map, or what it's for, is actually for Academy from Fountain to Milton Proby. Okay, and it's misleading. And there's another one on page 89 of the thing. Is this part of PPRTA 1 or 2? We had extra funds at the end of 1, and we used them to complete Mark Sheffel. And I think this is, quote, part of PPRTA 2 and widening Mark Sheffel going out to Black Forest Road, I think. When I say that, it doesn't even say what it is. It just says it's for the bridge.
Rev,
I'm lost.
what are you talking? What are you talking about, Rev?
Yeah.
Page 89 of the quarterly report, page 89.
Hey, Rob, didn't you mention page 81 first?
Yes, I did. If you go to page 81, then it's also part of 7D, where it says project description. Academy Boulevard between Fountain Boulevard and Airport Road is not an A-list project. From Beachview to Airport is, and from Fountain to Milton Proby is 2, and they've been combined pretty much by the city into one project. For engineering, there are a lot of reasons, and we got a report like last month from the city, and I may have been an after hours meeting too, but regardless, the way it's described, it's an 8,100 foot length. The project the Academy Boulevard from airport to Fountain is only about a half-mile long, not 2+ miles long. And they refer to the landfill, the abandoned landfill. That area is north of the power station, just north of Hancock on the east side of the Academy. And so they're referring, the information is part of the project, the main project, and the map is for a different area.
So, hey, Reb, this is Mike. So, yeah, we need to make a slight correction there. We have page 80 talks about Academy from Bijou to Airport. And
right.
Then 81, we need to change it. It's from Fountain to, the header is right, but the project description, we need to make a correction there. So it would be Fountain to Milton Proby.
Right.
So good catch on that one.
All right. 89.
89. Hold on, let me get there real quick. What was your question there? That
Mark Sheffel Road project, which is an RTA 1. That's the last of the RTA 1 funding project.
Okay, it wasn't clear. That's why I asked. So basically, the money in RTA 1 is completely spent.
It will be, and there was a table, and I don't have the PDF page number, but on the report itself on page 9, we talk about the 3 remaining expenditure efforts for RTA 1 funds, and that's that Mark Shuffle road project and that bridge over Sand Creek.
The bridge over Sand Creek is funded with RTA 2 money. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Wait, which bridge, Jim?
The
The bridge
same,
over Sand Creek at North Mark Shuffle, that's RTA 2 money, correct?
No, it's RTA 1.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
RTA 1. This is Rick.
Yeah, they probably should annotate that so that it's clear that that's an RTA 1 funded project would be my recommendation.
Yeah, we can do that.
If Gail is still there, can I make a comment? I'd like to commend you. I think your new format is fantastic. I do have a problem with, it's hopefully taken as constructive. For example, later on in this report, you've got some pie charts. You've got it scaled. I have to expand my screen just to read the numbers inside. And just depending on which machine I use, it's a pain in the neck. And a damn sure doesn't show up on a good copy of it printed.
so I understand, I'm sorry, and it keeps cutting out when you're talking. So I understand with the page that has the 4 pie charts, you're having difficult reading?
Yeah, I'm trying to go back. It's back at the back end of it. Anyway, what it basically does, you can see it if you expand the screen. It's part of it's got to do with the coloring, and the other part of it has to do with the actual screen size. I actually had someone with a whole lot better eyesight than I did, couldn't read it till we expanded it way out. And if you print it, just print it like an 8.5 by 11, it doesn't, you can't read it.
Dale, he also wanted to make sure that you were aware that he appreciated the new format, though.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Just that the pie charts were hard to read.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, don't do anything different other than make me able to read it, okay?
Use something other than your iPhone.
I do have my iPhone. It's my eyeglasses I need. Alex, you can't tell the difference between I and EYI or EYE.
All right, any other questions for any of the member governments on their quarterly reports? I too would like to compliment everyone. Those reports are very informative, very well put together, and I encourage everyone to keep those handy. They're great reference material. So thank you, everybody. If there are no other further questions on that one, let's move on to item 8, administrative actions and report of recent board actions. Rick, I think this is where I would cover the RTA 3 discussion.
Yes.
Okay. So let me report back a little bit from last month's board meeting. The CAC had a recommendation for approval of the budget as it was submitted, but we had concerns with the $400,000+ in the admin fund that was being set aside for better estimating. And I presented that concern to the board along with our presentation and discussion. The concern was acknowledged, but not really acted upon. There was only one person that spoke to that concern, and that was Councilman Williams. He expressed that they felt like that was a good idea and supported it, and the board basically made no comments beyond that. And the end result was the board made no changes to the budget at all, and it goes forward into this month's board with, and they will vote at a workshop or with a meeting to approve that budget. I was at a little bit of a quandary of to how to report back to you guys. So I reached out to Councilman Williams. He and I met for an hour or two, and we talked about some of the concerns, such as spending RTA2 money on yet to be approved RTA3 projects, and what would happen if the news media or somebody got wind of that and whatnot. And in his mind, and again, he is speaking for the board because no one else has voiced an opinion here, is that an administrative function, planning, future planning and planning, just like we would cover expenses for putting the RTA3 ballot together, any of those kinds of things, that this falls into the category of planning ahead. And that as long as it remains in the administrative area, that we should be okay from that perspective. We also talked about so that we centered around that discussion around that in terms of could we wait until 2022? If we take it to ballot measure in 2022 and it's approved, then we spend that money on the first couple of years. He wasn't in favor of that. He felt like that particularly the city needed that time to get some good estimates so that whatever percentage of funding we end up going forward with, 70% or 90% or whatever projected revenue that they choose to use, that they can draw that line on the A list and have a better idea going into the ballot, have a better idea of when they would finish the A list and be able to move to the B list. And so he had no real concerns, wasn't for waiting until 2022 to start getting those cost estimates. So bottom line, it was a real good discussion. I think I understand a little better where he's coming from in terms of it's been acknowledged that there was very little estimating done with RTA2. He had some concerns about where project costs have increased, that there have been so many increases from the original estimates, and which led to the discussion was, in some cases, there was very little cost estimating done. But also, depending on the contracting method, a lot of the large projects, for instance, were design build. So you're not going to have an accurate cost estimate for a project in a design build. We've had a couple of examples like Circle Avenue bridges, the Academy Bridge over Cottonwood Creek, where they were originally estimated for repairs or rehabilitation, and later it was determined as they got further into the design that it was more cost effective, or there were some unseen conditions that drove them that the most cost effective or cost benefit analysis was in a replacement, not in a rehab, and that those were conscious decisions based on engineering data brought forward, discussed, and approved individually. So they, in my opinion, they don't fall into we did a poor job of estimating using those as examples. They were deliberate decisions to do something differently than was originally envisioned. I also made him aware that there is a board policy. Rick, is that 24? The one on when someone brings a cost estimate forward?
26.
26, that it says there were some criteria that says if the change order is below a certain amount, we need this kind of documentation. If it's in this range, we need this amount of documentation. And so there is some criteria. He was not aware of that. He was glad that we had that. And so we do have some measures in place to make sure that when there is a change order or a significant change in the cost of a project, that everything is being transparent, that the decisions are carefully discussed and thought out, and that there's a deliberate decision to make that change. And so he was glad to know that that policy exists and that's out there. But I just wanted to report back to you, our concern on the budget in that admin area was noted, and that's it. So I just felt like that I personally, and for the benefit of the CAC, to share with you guys that I needed some more clarity in what Mr. Williams was thinking and why. And I think with going into RTA 3, his focus is making sure that we have a good handle on where we draw the line, what projects are included, and at least some idea about when we will complete A and move on to B. Now, having said that, we did caution our concern about publishing that date. That's more of an aspirational goal, and that we don't want to box ourselves in by making a promise that we're going to move from A to B in a certain year when we have no control over the circumstances that would allow us or prevent us from doing that. So that was acknowledged as well. So anyway, I just, that was report back on the our report to the board from last month. I'll take any questions.
Hey, Jim, this is Brian West. I wanted to thank you for putting in the extra time and meeting with Mr. Williams on that and fleshing out those concerns.
No problem. Okay. Rick, you want to? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I just have a question. This $450,000 is in the 2021 budget, and the projects haven't yet been identified or approved by the public. I'm afraid we're putting the cart before the horse here. Did you address that question at all?
Yes, Cheryl, I did. And that was kind of contained in a discussion about waiting until 2022 when the ballot measure is approved. We would still have, from November of 2022, we'd still have 2 years to build those cost estimates, and we would also have an approved list of projects by that time, that once the ballot is approved. But again, his point was that he felt like by leaving it in the admin area versus moving
2021, right?
Oh,
Leaving it in the admin budget for 2021.
No, they're going to spend some of the admin budget in 2021 for within the city and the county. I guess the county is going to take part of this, but the member governments can withdraw from some of this money to do planning for projects that will go on the list for the ballot measure.
Okay.
And again, the idea is just to have a better estimate of when they're trying to figure out what's on the A list, what's on the B list, how far down the list will they be able to go in 10 years or whatever, by having more accurate estimates, they think that is better suited for the planning purposes.
Thank you, Jim.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Jim, how do you come up with this list? When I say this list, you're talking about whether 75 or 90%, whatever is going to be done. That's just general knowledge, and it's an estimate. It's also a guesstimate that the project is going to cost. It's the changes and whatnot are going to happen. What is the function of spending $200,000 on planning? What are you doing now? In other words, what have you done for PPRTA 1, PPRTA 2 to come up with a ballot and say, these are the projects A list and these are the B list type thing, and any more about it? That is planning. That's got nothing to do with engineering estimates. How did you come up with an estimate for the first two PPRTAs? And I know it's not fair to ask you that, but how was a project defined to be, okay, we can fit this into the A-list budget for what is the expected revenue for PPRTA 3? What are these estimates going to do that's different with what has been being done?
This is Brian West. If I could chime in real quick. The planning for PPRTA 1, the costs of that were obviously borne by the member governments because the PPRTA didn't exist yet. My understanding, and Rick can correct me if I'm wrong, but the planning that was done anyway for PPRTA 2 was also borne by the member governments.
Yes, this is Rick. Yes, but Mike Chavez might be able to chime in on that from his attendance at some of the meetings that Kathleen Krager chaired and over at the city with CTAB, and Jennifer Irvin might also know what the county process was for PPRTA 2 cost estimation.
Yeah, this is Mike. So in RTA 1, we actually had some conceptual engineering done on some of the larger projects that were, I don't know if they were approved on the list, but they were the ones the city had before the vote. So we had a little bit better idea of what was going to be needed to do the project. Austin Bluffs Union Interchange was one that we had estimate, Proby Park Extension. We did some preliminary engineering, so we had a pretty good idea of what the scope of the work was. RTA 2, we didn't do that. We did have some more conceptual work done, but it was a lot in-house internal staff. And what we missed there was the scope of what it was really going to take. You know, a good example is the Academy over Cottonwood Creek Bridge. We actually had an engineer in firm look at what was it going to cost to add a cell to make that connection, but they didn't really look into the utility impacts. I think they threw a number in there for some relocations that we thought we might need, but when we actually got to the design of the project, one, we did change our scope from a rehab to a replacement, but we looked into more utility relocations in detail and realized there was a lot more work to be done in that area. The other thing is the hydraulics were looked at more in depth once we got going, and it came out that we needed to do a lot more channel stabilization than the initial study before the ballot was done. So that's where we kind of missed the mark. It's not so much that the estimates weren't good, but we didn't really have a chance to look at what's it really going to take to get this project implemented. And I think that's what Wayne's thought is if we get some preliminary engineering, we'll have a better idea of what's really needed, so that when we put estimates, not in the ballot, but when we start doing the project allocation, we'll have a better idea of what they're going to really cost. And so we'll have a little bit of a better idea so that we don't have these cost escalations as much as what we've seen in 2. We're still going to have them because we don't have a full design, but I think the attempt is to get closer to what the cost is going to be. And I think the other thing that will work into that is a cost escalation, because some of these projects are going to be 10 years out.
Yeah, and the comments were that to focus on the first couple of years, not trying to spend money on a project in year 10. It's the first couple of years. And then I think I understood that once the ballot is passed and we're into RTA 3, that the money for cost estimating would then fall back in the capital program. And I think that was the plan.
But Jim, would you agree? You're not going to get any better estimate once you pass PPRTA 3. You're still basing it on not only growth or revenue that's received, you're basing on a guess of what the project is going to cost. You still haven't done an in-depth analysis of things like Mike just talked of, changing from repair to a brand new structure on Cottonwood Creek. Another thing that you brought up, West Colorado was way off base because that was, quote, a combination design build, and you ran into a whole bunch of change orders. And I know a certain board chair, it's really stuck in its cross how much more it cost than it was, quote, estimated to be. But once you start, you can't stop. Now, what do you?
Right, and I did have and we've kind of discussed this briefly, if I recall, but the idea that let's say that within a budget year, say a 2021 budget year, that the projects being put forward in a particular budget year, say 2021, for example, those projects that are being submitted in that budget request should be at a fairly full design complement. You should be at the 80% level or something to have an idea where what you're actually proposing as a comp is reasonable. I don't think personally that you should have a zero design project in a current year budget submission. And then you should also be looking ahead 3 years or so, and so that there should be some work being done on 2022 projects to beginning to refine scope, conditions, and those kinds of things on those. And you should also be taking some initial looks at those in 2023 to begin to move them through that design pipeline and moving those along. And that way, when you come to a budget year, a budget formulation and submission, that the projects that you're submitting in that budget submission are reasonably accurate in terms of their design and cost. And I personally, that's my experience in working in long-term fiscal planning and submitting multi-year budgets. That process worked very well. And you're not sitting there with a $20 million construction project at zero design going into your budget year, or 10% design. You should be much further along. Again, my opinion. But that's something to discuss later, I guess. But it was thrown out there in my discussion with Mr. Williams. All right, any other questions on that subject or discussion? I appreciate everybody's input and consideration, and I hope I represented us well. Okay, let's move on to 8B, Rick.
Okay, this is a appointment, reappointment of the CAC members, and I have received from Tim Roberts with City and CTAB, I've received Scott Barnhart's reappointment confirmation. I'm still waiting on Richard Robertson and Nichols, Cindy. Now, with regard to the 4 at-larges, the board at the last meeting directed their subcommittee to meet and review the applications from the 3 current CAC members who are able to have a second term, and they met and they developed a recommendation to the full board. It'll go in the board's packet tomorrow, and then the board will act on it on December 9. So that's all of my report on that. This is just an information item. Are there any questions?
Well, actually, Rick, just one question. I'm assuming this is Brian, I'm assuming since I expire at the end of this month, that I can still attend future meetings as a member of the public.
Certainly.
Okay.
Absolutely. And Brian, I think something will probably be coming in January from the board, but I'd just like to personally thank you for your years of service to the PPRTA CAC. You've been around a long time. Your input has been appreciated and very helpful in the process, for at least for the number of years that I've been around. And so I'd like to personally just thank you for your time and effort and energy that you've put into the community.
Hey, Brian, this is Ann Esch. I agree. You've taught me a lot, and I hope you'll keep tuning in.
I appreciate that very much. It's going to seem strange after almost 15 years to not be participating with you. So I may have to get my fix and join in on your meetings.
Well, thank you, Brian. Rick, HC.
Just a reminder that at your January meeting, you'll need to select your chair, first vice chair, and second vice chair. So just a heads up to be planning ahead and be ready to do that at your meeting on January 6th.
Nominations and volunteers are acceptable. All right. Item number 9, any agenda topics for next meeting? Anything burning that everybody wants to talk about? We can talk about how exciting our Christmas was by ourselves. Hearing none, we'll go with the standard input. Any communications by any members of the committee?
Yes, this is Ann in Green Mountain Falls.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to communicate that Green Mountain Falls has officially started a fire mitigation advisory committee, and I am a member, and we're just getting started to address this growing danger in our mountain community. And we're applying for financial aid to help us get trees cut, especially on private properties and so on like that. It's a very small, compact valley. And I thought, well, if the PPRTA has grant ideas or whatever, that would be great. And thank you.
Okay.
And this is Sheryl Everett, and I was instrumental in forming a Firewise community in Black Forest.
Okay.
And I would recommend that you all explore that option. I know that on the Bear Creek fire, they too were in a Firewise community and accomplished a lot. Takes a lot of volunteers, but it's well worth the effort.
I think I've seen that on the Google. Is that right? Firewise, it's a name.
Yes,
that
Firewise.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I believe there's some limited federal funds available to those approved Firewise communities. Isn't that correct, Cheryl?
You have to unmute me. Yes, it's in kind a lot of times, and you really need to thoroughly explore because it's a very helpful organization. They give you a lot of materials to support your volunteers, and then there is money available. So do explore as a part of that, the Firewise community website.
Thank you very, very much, both of you. Thank you.
Any other communications by any of the members of the committee?
Jim, this is Beverly, and I just wanted to mention something that I forgot to mention during my report, financial report, but the CAC was concerned about the city paying back El Paso County for West Colorado Avenue, and city staff, county staff, and Rick and I had a meeting a couple weeks ago. And the Black Forest Road is a joint project, and the city is going to budget the money for that, and it will more than offset the West Colorado Avenue funds that El Paso County allocated for the city.
Okay, thank you.
So,
yes.
So it's no longer really going to be a concern, and we'll work it out as far as, you know, the funds going back and forth or future, anyway, at the end of the RTA funding process for this 10 years that we're in, you really still have to finish the A list in order to go on to the B list. So you're not exactly owing anybody anything if one of the member governments still needs more funding for a project. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Thank you for that. I forgot to mention that as well.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no other communications, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Actually, Jim, this is Wes. If I could just make a few comments real quick.
Okay.
Not to draw out the meeting, but I wanted to just tell everybody that it has been an honor for me to work with this group over the last nearly 15 years. And the fact that you as citizens care enough about your community to volunteer your time to kind of watch over and guide the PPRTA is no small thing. And I don't think, unfortunately, that volunteer public service is recognized as much as it should be for the true public service it is to our community. And I would encourage everybody to guard their role as guardians and sometimes overseers of the public trust, and protect it, because it's an extremely important role in our society, as we've seen, especially this year. Experts are not always right. An expert designed the Titanic, so it's important that we ask questions, and true public servants are not afraid of the light of day and answering questions to the public in which they serve. So I commend you all for your dedication to that service, and I encourage you to keep plugging ahead. It's been an honor, and I thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
All right, folks, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Sheryl Everett, I so move.
Second?
Second.
Second, Joan. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. And everyone have a safe and happy Christmas. Be safe out there, folks. I got a friend that's not doing well in this nasty disease. So hang in there, be safe, and be smart.
Joyous Yuletide and Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yes, Merry
Merry Christmas all.
To all.
Holidays. Thank you.
Christmas.